I'm getting so confused with the time zones right now because I think there's this we're in this week again, or we were in this week last week, where the US had already switched and Europe has not. And now I'm just so confused about meeting times. So I'm hoping that we're all correct. Okay. And we can give it like 3 more minutes until 5 past and then start. We do have a very, very full agenda, and we're definitely not going to get through it because for some reason we have 4 project presentations. So just let me see, like, who is here for a project to give a project presentation? Can you just like, Ellen, you start because you're on my very first. Like, which one were you going to present?
So I'm here to. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
So I'm here to present Shipwright. I'll let Alan go.
Yeah.
I'm here with Michael Kalantar, and we're gonna present Iterate together.
Okay. And then Philip, you also had your hand up, right?
Yes, I'm here to present Glasskube.
Okay, so we don't have anyone from Litmus here. Okay.
Hi.
No? Oh, there you are, Karthik. Okay. So yeah, I see that Iterates asked for 20 minutes. So we're definitely not gonna be able to do 4. The maximum that we can usually do is 2, and already that is really like tight. There's not a lot of time to discuss. So I would ask like 2 of the projects to, I'm very sorry about this, please come back in 2 weeks. And we will discuss the 2 projects then. That will be the 17th of April. Otherwise, we will have to like.
So in 2 weeks, we do have Tecton on the schedule.
Yes.
So we need to make sure that, like you put in the notes, please ping us in the Slack to sign up and make sure that there is for you.
Yeah, I think I don't know what happened, but I think people just put in the projects they want to present, which is great. But yeah, we just can't dedicate any discussion time. Then it wouldn't be useful to anyone if we just do presentation after presentation, right? So especially if you feel like I want more time on my project. We also are discussing currently to change the format of the project presentations. So what we're thinking is that maybe you could do a presentation, you could record it before the meeting, people could watch that recording before and then just bring the questions to the meeting. You can still do like a 5-minute pitch or like a 10-minute pitch, but we felt that doing the full like 20-minute presentation and then putting another 10 minutes of question time on, it just seems longer, more draggy than it has to be. So yeah, if any of the 4 projects would be willing to come back on the 17th of April, where we can fit 1 in, and then the 1st of May, which I'm not sure if people are actually going to work because it's a holiday for a lot of countries. In any case, so we can only do 2 max. So I'm going to ask someone. You can either be very helpful to the community and just volunteer to come back later, or you might just get axed by me.
If things were being added, do we not just start from the top down? Do we assume things got added in order?
Yeah. So that would mean that we would start with Shipwright and then do Glasskube and then see if we can get to any other project, because that's
by default, unless one of those projects wants to delay, but it seems like starting from the top down makes sense.
Yeah. And we will streamline this. So already, if you were thinking like, hey, I could just do like a recorded presentation, 10 minutes, or like send in a recording of the presentation you already have, then that would be even better, because that makes it, I think, easier and like more engaging also for the meeting. Okay, so that's it for the beginning, and I think we can start now. Do we have any new people in this group? Maybe some like KubeCon joiners? That would be amazing. If yes, we'd love it if you like just introduce yourself really quickly. Okay, just to clear things up, Prithvi, right? So what happened was that we were keeping a separate spreadsheet where we put projects in, And in that spreadsheet, Litmus was indeed the second one. But at the same time, and in this doc, people were adding other projects too, and we just didn't keep the two in sync. So now we have to figure out how we like have ideally a single point of truth, which is probably going to be the stock. And we'll just have to keep the stock clean, but because everyone has edit rights in the stock, and most people edit like anonymously, we just don't know who added what at what time. So we'll just have to trust that, you know, people edit themselves in the right order, and then we'll just go through the top down. Cool. So if anyone wants to just say hi, now is your time. Just, you know, unmute yourself and speak. That's how we usually do it. But you don't have to all talk at the same time.
Hello, everyone. Just, you know, now that I'm being peer pressured into saying hello, I didn't want to interrupt the meeting, but yeah, good to meet you all. I'm from Capital One, and I'm Mario de Armas, and I've been tracking the, you know, the work of that's coming out of the project, and you know, be interested to see where it's going and learn about the strategy. And all right, so good to meet you all.
Awesome. Hi, nice to meet you. Like no one should feel forced. Like if you want to say something, introduce yourself in video. If you just want to write something, that's also fine.
And I was just kidding, by the way, Liam. Just
Okay, good.
that's my humor. So sorry about that.
Hey, I'll follow. Am I coming through? I'll follow Mario's example. My name's Ryan. I work at Microsoft in the on a team in the CTO's office where we do a lot of open source things. So we're the people who created another CNCF project called Dapper, and a couple other things that kind of exist. There's another project, Copacetic, that came out of our group recently around container patching. So I'll be here to hang out. I'll be coming to meetings. I lead a project called Radius that we presented on, I think, back in November.
So, hello, everybody. Okay,
Hi.
so hopefully my video is coming through. So, my name is Sri, and I'm part of IBM Research, and me, along with my colleagues, some of whom I see here. So, we are working on this open source project called Iterate. Obviously, we have engaged with CNCF before on multiple fronts, including KubeCon and other community meetings. I think this is the first time I'm attending this tag meeting. So nice to see you all. And yes, we're looking forward to present, and we would love to either present it here or do a recording, and whichever way it makes sense to introduce the project here. I'll be happy to do that.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, cool. Moving on. So we'll do a quick status update of the working groups and other things that are just going on. We're not doing project reviews anymore, I think, so I'm going to just remove that from the agenda. So I'm just going to do a quick update that we have discussed during KubeCon to start a app development working group. There's been a lot of interest in the area of app development. We've been really struggling to find a space for it in the scope of the tag. So what we've kind of agreed on for now is that we will start a working group under our tag. And if there's enough interest and we can build enough momentum and especially enough people to work on this, then we will try and basically move it out of our tag and create an app development tag for this. But we first want to see, is there enough consistent interest and enough people who want to put the work in for that to happen. So we'll have a kickoff meeting tomorrow, 3 p.m. UK time, 10 a.m. Eastern. If you're interested in joining that, you can join the VG app development Slack channel. I can also post it later in the general group, and just join and like find out what's happening there. Join the meeting. It's just starting now, so if you can't make it tomorrow or any of the other first meetings, it's fine. We're just getting started, so you're not going to miss too much. Cool. Platforms?
Yeah, just that there's been a lot of awesome influx, particularly we've got 2 new languages, Spanish and French. So right now just started getting them in. We also are doing interviews associated with platform as a product. So if that's something you're thinking about, and you are a end user company, you might be really well suited to be interviewed, and you can join in as interviewer as well, or if you are from another angle, interviewers are welcome as well. And then this might be more for a tag leadership chat, but I think we just, from a working group point of view, being able to alert tag leadership when there is ready to be reviewed PRs versus like when they're still sort of in the domain of the working group. And then when they're like have surfaced to we're ready to merge, I think we could figure out a way to make that easier on everybody, maybe through a like a label or something. So yeah, something that we were just thinking about from a working group point of view.
Cool. Do we have the artifacts working group here? Okay. We need to figure out who to send to their meetings, because Josh is our liaison for artifacts, and he's currently not available much, so we have to probably send someone there. Unfortunately, it's Friday evening for Europe, so not me. We'll figure it out. All right, I think we can go directly to the project presentations, then we'll probably also have enough time for two. So Shipwright is first, Adam, right? That was you.
Yep, that's me. Let me go ahead
Awesome.
and share. Hopefully this works.
Oh, just one quick thing. If you met us through KubeCon, if you went to KubeCon, met us there for the first time, are now in this meeting, like we would love it if you have any kind of feedback. You can also just ping me and we can have a short conversation. We just want to know like how to get people more excited, interested, like what kind of messaging worked for you, what didn't. That would be very, very helpful. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Give me one moment. I just want to make sure that give me one sec. Just want to make sure it's actually working the way it's supposed to. And I apologize. My Zoom client is sometimes a little tricky to work with.
That's all right. If it's
okay, there we go.
Okay, good.
Okay, so you should all see that. So thank you. I'm going to try and be as quick as I can, given the time constraints. So my name is Adam Kaplan. I'm a software engineer at Red Hat, and I am one of the maintainers of the Shipwright project. Shipwright is currently a CD Foundation project, so we're already part of the Linux Foundation, but we are looking as part of our sandbox proposal to move over to the CNCF. So I want to use this as an opportunity to give you the context about the project, what it is, what its history is, and also kind of how we see it fitting in with the rest of the CNCF ecosystem and why we feel that this move is going to be the right move for the project. So if you are not familiar with what Shipwright is, it is a framework for building container images, and it's always, since inception, it's been about building container images on Kubernetes. It's our focus has been on using cloud native infrastructure to build cloud native applications, and doing it in a way where you're not the tooling that you're using to run your applications is the one that you're using to build your applications as well. And the way we do it is through the core API, which is the sort of build API, which takes the source as its input and then delivers it as a container image. I'm going to eschew YAML for this presentation. I'm sure you've seen plenty of YAML in these presentations. And so the thing that kind of differentiates Shipwright is the part of our API, which we call the build strategy API. And so what we're doing here is we are differentiating the how a container image is built versus what things are actually being built. And by doing so, we actually are giving developers freedom to choose which tools that they're using to build their applications with and make this kind of a simple straightforward experience. So with it, since we're running on Kubernetes, any tool that can assemble a container image within a container itself can be used. And I'll show off a little bit, show that in a little bit. And we also, one of the other things that we try to do is try to shrink the distance between what developers do on their machines versus what's done on their CI and build and delivery systems through the command line. And so, for example, what you can do with the ship command line is start the build through the code that's sitting on your machine and send it to a Kubernetes cluster where it actually could be run. And that cluster could even be a kind cluster that's also running on your laptop. In terms of how we're delivering it, there's a few ways you can use Shipwright and install it. You can use the release manifest that we publish. We also have an operator that we publish to Operator Hub. And one final important note, and is kind of like why we're kind of tied at the hip with Tekton, is because we are actually powered by Tekton. And when I mention this, a lot of people will ask me, well, if you're building on top of Tekton, why don't you just use Tekton itself? And one of the things I always like to say is I like to compare Shipwright and Tekton to a Swiss Army knife. So when you look at a Swiss Army knife, it's got your handle, but you've got all the tools that are coming off of it. Tekton and Shipwright have this similar kind of relationship where Tekton is that kind of central handle where all the tools can be housed and it can all run and makes them all kind of work together. But Shipwright is providing an experience around the knife. It's providing an experience around the tool that most people at least think of when it comes to Tekton. And it's kind of like that first use case that folks want to try and do with Tekton, but oftentimes struggle with. So to give you some history as to sort of how we got here. So this actually started at Red Hat as in 2020 as OpenShift Builds V2, where we were taking the ideas from OpenShift's build system with an API that we call build configs. And we wanted to make that API more flexible and also be able to run on any Kubernetes distribution. We immediately got some partners from IBM who were interested in this, and some of this happened actually before the acquisition. As part of that, our collaborations, we renamed it the project Shipwright and donated the project to the CD Foundation. And then over the next 2 years, we continued iterating upstream. So in 2022 was when we brought the operator and command line subprojects. So we have the operator install, the CLI experience for local development. And then last year, we announced a beta API for the core build project so that we could provide more stability to our end users. In terms of who is actually using this, IBM, as I mentioned, was one of the first partners here, and they are using it as part of Code Engine. Myself at Red Hat, we are using this as part of the Red Hat Builds for OpenShift product, which we actually just announced as GA. We also have adoption from the Open Function project as part of the CNCF. And for OKD, which is the community distribution of OpenShift, they are actually using Shipwright as part of their multi-arch build pipeline. So before I move on, are there any questions from the tag about what Shipwright is?
I think no question. The only
Great.
maybe question is how much do you depend on Tekton if you say built on Tekton?
So we do have right now it's a tight coupling. So we have a direct dependency. The way it works is that when user wants to run a build, it creates an object called a build run. And we have a controller that then in turns creates a Tekton task run for that. So that is the current implementation. Because it's an API and we have abstracted it. That doesn't have to be the case, but right now that's the way it is, and we're pretty happy with that setup. Others have definitely approached me about whether or not, we could extend it so it supports Argo workflows, for example.
Yeah, I think the question is more coming from the background of, okay, do you also need to have Tecton, because that for the project creates a hard dependency on Tecton. That's why.
Yep.
Okay, that's
Right.
Keep going.
Nothing else. And so then for like moving forward, what does the community want to aspire to? So the first thing we want to do is encourage the build tooling ecosystem that goes beyond, say, just the Docker file. We also want to simplify things when it comes to secure software supply chain, and especially things around SLSA compliance. So, for example, around vulnerability scanning, we have a feature that's being actively iterated on upstream right now as I speak, around building an API and experience around adding source scanning to build pipelines. Also, because we have that dependency on Tecton, we can actually take advantage of the features that Tecton has when it comes to secure software supply chain. One of the sort of next things that we will need to start looking at is around signing an attestation, having an experience where if you have Tecton chains running and you're doing your builds with Shipwright, that you can get signatures and attestations for your builds automatically. And lastly, we also want to make it easy to plug Shipwright into other CI systems, and not necessarily just Tecton. For example, being able to use Shipwright with, say, GitHub Actions, if you're able to connect your GitHub Actions to a Kubernetes cluster. And so the last thing that I want to sort of just touch on before the final questions is about why we want to move over to the CNCF. As I mentioned earlier, we started with the CD Foundation, and while it's been great for us to incubate as a community, we found with time that we have closer ties with the CNCF than just the CD Foundation. For instance, we really are excited by build packs and co. And we have samples where you can use build packs and co to build your container images. And so we want to sort of bridge that gap between the two of us and create opportunities where we can interact and work together and improve each other. We also have the Tecton dependency, which in turn is the Kubernetes dependency. That's been a thing from the get-go. And finally, with Open Function, they are using Shipwright as part of their build process. We'd love to see other CNCF projects look into Shipwright and potentially include it as either a platform they support or something that they can integrate with. So I think I covered a lot of this slide here, so I can go ahead and skip it. If you want more information, you can check up our GitHub organization is Shipwright.io. That's already been, I think, onboarded with the Linux Foundation, just for your point of reference. We have a documentation and blog on the Shipwright.io site. And if you want to learn more from some of our presentations, we have a lot from CDCon, from past CDCons. So 2022 was kind of our coming out party. I have 2 links to those presentations here, and I can send a PDF with these links. And then we had a demo at CDCon last year about secure and reliable image creation with Shipwright. Right. Any questions?
so. How widely is used Shipwright right now outside like of the Red Hat ecosystem?
So in terms outside of the Red Hat ecosystem, I mentioned sort of IBM code engine, so that is part of it. I think a lot of folks see Red Hat and IBM as, we are the same ultimate parent company, but we do operate independently of each other. We don't have direct kind of like management chains. They're using it their way. We have it now as a product that we literally just announced. So there's some adoption there as like a vendor, but We'd love to see more community adoption, quite frankly. OKD is probably the most notable one right now, where they're using it for multi-arch builds. We've had a few other community end users come to us, but truthfully, that's something that we'd like to see more of.
And from the contributors, like how many organizations do you have currently contributing to the project? Like significantly contributing? How to, like, or to turn the question around, how much is driven by Red Hat right now? Like from the overall development work versus others?
So I actually would say right now the core contributors are coming from IBM, followed by Red Hat. We unfortunately don't have a lot of contributors beyond that, and certainly no one who has reached that kind of contributor maintainer level on the project yet.
And maybe a last question on roadmap. Like, what are your plans going forward for Shipwright? What do you want to work on? Like after you join, if you join, when you join? So
after we join, the community definitely wants to add more around secure software supply chain. So having better integrations, for example, with Tecton chains, so that we can have that automatic signing and attestation, and maybe even going beyond what Tecton offers by adding additional signatures, adding sort of additional provenance around it. There's potential that Shipwright might be able to address some gaps that Tecton has today when it comes to providing certain levels of SALSA attestation, because Tecton is generic, and so it's not necessarily knowing specifically that it's doing a build, whereas Shipwright knows end-to-end that it's doing a container image build. Multi-arch is probably then the next thing that we want to start addressing, in particular with the feedback that we're getting from the OKD community. We actually just started having some conversations around that, and we'd like to take what they've learned with their multi-arch Shipwright build and make an improved, better experience around that. I think, Karina, you've got your hand up.
Thanks. You've talked a lot about Tecton. Have you looked at integrating with Tecton or merging into Tecton?
So we do have a project that's still incubating right now within Shipwright called Triggers. And so one of the first things we wanted to do with that is support integration within a Tecton pipeline through Tecton's custom task feature. So in that case, the custom task would effectively expose a Shipwright or a similar Shipwright API, which then we have a controller that would watch for those custom tasks, convert that into a Shipwright build run, and then continue flowing things through the pipeline. And ideally, if we get it all working together, we have the appropriate chain of owner references so that you can see end to end within your Tecton pipeline what was done.
So follow up. I guess I could go on video. You're going to be asked, you know, how does this fit into the overall cloud native community, right? And the ecosystem, but really, why isn't this a sub project of Tecton? Why would this be a standalone project? I think Alois, feel like you have more thoughts here. Like I keep hearing more and more about Tecton, and that's the first thing that jumps out to me is.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, jumping in here, I think the hard dependency on Tecton is, I think that something that will definitely come up in the review. Like another project that you have a core dependency on that is managed in another foundation. And also to Karina's point, you would see, okay, if you have such a high dependency, why not the sub project? Like taking the analogy of Argo, like there's Argo workflows and there's underneath. And you have this hard dependency there. Plus, you also mentioned you want to even tighter integrate into Tecton in some areas. So I see this definitely coming up and maybe being or leading to some hesitation on the CNCF side to accept the project, especially as you are already in the same foundation where Tecton is right now.
That is correct. I guess to that point is that yes, we are in the same foundation as Tecton, but you've probably seen on the schedule Tecton also wants to come over to the CNCF. So I will readily admit that our part of our motivation for wanting to come over to the CNCF is because we know that Tecton also wants to come over to the CNCF. That said, I do appreciate that notion of like, if we're so tightly coupled to Tecton, why aren't we just a sub-project of Tecton? I think one of the reasons why we're not just a sub-project of Tecton is because the community wants to keep a lot of things general purpose. The more I've worked with Tecton, to me, it feels more appropriate to consider it a workflow engine first, and doing things for CI/CD is a outcome of that. And the community has kind of strived to keep things, keep the core of Tecton that kind of like general purpose. It could do almost any kind of workflow, because a lot of CI/CD ultimately involves doing arbitrary workflows, running arbitrary code. Whereas this gets back to almost like the original founding purpose for Tecton, which was about doing the build as part of like Knative, if you go back to Tecton's history.
Yeah, I think that I mean, I think we kind of said it. I think it's going to be a challenge to explain this, especially if, like, I mean, thank you for being honest and forward on this. I think that that's helpful anyways. And maybe then, like, when Tecton moves over, making this like actually part of it, because an obvious question for a build system would be Argo. Like, what's your way of integrating into Argo?
Right. And I think that would be
mean-
also something where that triggers project could also pave a way for integration with Argo. Another thing that could, in theory, be discussed within the community, almost doing what Kubeflow has. Kubeflow has almost the same problem or same challenge, where they've got an API and then two different engines that can implement it. And it sounds like that's almost like the direction you might want to see Shipwright go in.
I'm not saying what you should do in your project at all, but when you brought up like future roadmap, that's why I was asking it. There was like no CNCF project involved. While in the very beginning, you said you want to like collaborate more with CNCF projects, and you brought up some of them, but nothing on this is on the roadmap. Right now, again, I'm not trying to twist words here, but as you look for the sandbox submission, this is obviously something that also the TUC will see. So you want to move over because you want to closer collaborate with other projects, but there are no specific plans right now. I think you could like at least think of how this would affect your roadmap and your engagement there.
Okay.
So we're trying to help here. Also, might not sound like it, but just providing that honest feedback. Otherwise, you will get it later on in the process, most likely.
So sorry, Leon, I was gonna jump in and say with respect to time,
Yeah.
the other projects.
Well, I just wanted to see if there's any like other question. I mean, Adam, are you in the Tag App Delivery Slack channel?
I'm not yet, but I can certainly join it. I think I am on CNCF Slack, so I should be able to join that.
Yeah, I think yeah, if anyone has further questions, they could just reach out on to you on the CNCF Slack. Is that something that would work, or is there any other way that would be better to reach you?
I think that is that you can reach me there. You can also, I'm on Kubernetes Slack, and most of the community is in the Shipwright channel on the Kubernetes Slack.
Kubernetes, like, okay, cool. Right. Cool. Thank you. Let me just check. I think people have moved stuff around now. Yeah, Iterate have moved themselves up. Okay, so Glasskube is next up. Do we still
Let me
have the
stop
rest of the
sharing.
folks here? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Right. We're from Glasskube, small startup from Vienna, and we actually recently launched in the beginning of February. And Josh wrote on the AppTech Delivery Slack channel if somebody heard about us, and Thomas then suggested that we present Glasskube. So we have no current ask, just to reach out to you guys, present Glasskube, and get your feedback, as we are still super early in the process of creating a new package manager for Kubernetes. Maybe a little bit of me, because you guys probably didn't hear about Glasskube or me before. I'm originally from Vienna, studied computer science and economics at the University of Technology. And I've been then CTO for a couple of years, working in the alerting system of Austrian firefighting organizations, and built highly available backend software, mostly distributed around Kubernetes clusters around Austria. And yeah, happy to connect on X or LinkedIn, or yeah, if you're in Vienna, happy to go for a run. We're already a team of 5 people working from Vienna. All have experience in the DevOps Kubernetes space, and just recently hired our first developer relations engineer, Jake, who supports us with interacting with the community, as kind of our Discord channel exploded over the last couple of weeks. Yes, currently 84 members, a lot of active contributors here on our Discord channel. We currently see a lot of interest in having a simpler way to install packages in Kubernetes. And we currently also see enthusiasts all over the world presenting Glasskube at the local meetups, which we really, really support and love. For example, Hansal, one of our contributors, presented in India. We see some Spanish presentations in El Salvador, and I presented also Glasskube at the KCD in Vienna. And what's the actual problems we want to solve? We heard about it before, the dependencies on Kubernetes. And what, if I talk to a lot of people on meetups, I often talk about the DevOps sandwich, right? You have Kubernetes at the bottom, which is kind of a super solid foundation, which is operated either in-house or by cloud providers. And then have your application at the top, which you have a lot of highly qualified engineers who make sure everything works. But then in between, you have a lot of cloud native application, which your core application kind of depends on. And there's like the CNCF landscape, obviously, with, I don't know, hundreds of tools. And there's currently no really good way to bring them into your cluster and manage them. And it's kind of a DevOps sandwich, which I call it. And we really focus on these packages on the cloud native foundation to make sure users or companies can manage them in a easier way, so that the core application so people don't have to focus so much time on these infrastructure components, but can focus on their core application. There are already ways to kind of packages. I won't go into detail, right? Obviously, people currently use Manifest Customize. There are some packages, I don't know, Crunchy Data still recommends using Customize. Kubeflow still recommends using Customize because of all the dependencies. Helm, obviously, with its known limitation, like umbrella charts, multi-namespace deployments, no dependencies. Timony also was presented at KubeCon Europe, has some interesting approaches, and we want to kind of be an alternative to these tools, but not subsidize them in the first way, but really interact with them. So we want to be we want to be a next generation really package manager for Kubernetes, inspired by Homebrew, but also providing a user interface and the ability to deploy packages as custom resources and integrating with Argo CD, for example. We don't reinvent the wheel at the moment. We still depend on tools like Customize, Helm, want to support OCI images, but focus really on the user experience by creating like typed configurations and having a cloud native approach. So using like validation webhooks before actually doing some changes. And so validation webhooks without side effects, so they can also run with diff commands and so on, to really make sure that the package configuration works. We heard about today, right, Shipwright and Tecton dependencies. So there's no way easily to say, okay, I have Shipwright, and Shipwright depends on this version of Tecton. If I have some other cloud native package which has the same dependency, has a similar dependency constraint, there's no such check at the moment, no package manager that offers these kind of checks. And obviously, in the background, we want to test these packages in CI/CD environments, and also a little outlook on our roadmap is we're really fans of Renovate. And Renovate is a great way to know if your pull request will to automate like updates or dependencies for your core application. And even if you don't write tests on your own, if other people in the ecosystem use this kind of framework and write tests, you get stuff like confidence scores and already like availability. So a score on how many other projects your package upgrade works and how widely distributed this update already is. And we want to do something similar, but this cannot be done in a CI/CD system. This really needs to be done on a package controller level, where we know which packages are installed in which Kubernetes cluster, and can like also then give feedback via Glasskube Cloud offering that we have a very high confidence that this package update can safely be merged in your Argo repository without breaking anything, because this package upgrade was already performed in X many of users or clusters. Talking a little bit of the architecture, I just outlined some of the stuff. We aim to create the central package repository, maybe also looking into Artifact Hub if this could be an Artifact Hub category. Then we have a client, which obviously has a CLI and a UI, and every action or every package that gets installed will be a custom resource created against the Kubernetes API. I think that for simplification reasons is not here. Every creation of a custom resource will obviously trigger a validation webhook and make sure that all the constraints are valid. Then we're gonna deploy the package, reconcile everything, check if the dependencies, deploy the dependencies first, and then give the status back to the client. We already have some fancy real-time updates. I would say UI Sugar to really also address more junior DevOps engineers or even backend engineers that want to deploy the application without being like super into Argo CD and GitOps and Helm and execute some Helm install commands, or without like never touching it and never updating it, which we also identified of a huge trouble of outdated Helm charts in Kubernetes clusters that just there and nobody takes care of. Exactly, yeah. Glasskube, as I've said, is like designed really with a cloud native way, so using validation webhooks for most of the stuff. So really not like trying to render out some manifests and then applying them, but really having it before we save custom resource, we can get the user the feedback, okay, this value is not valid. And also using common expression language for parts of the configuration, so we really can aim to have like type safety, different input types to improve user and configuration experience, and also have an option so that you can still create or initialize your packages via UI and CLI and just output them as a YAML file and put this into Argo CD and check it into Argo CD. This is also what we're seeing as we like the GitOps approach for those who are able to do it. Yeah, what's our ask? We actually just came back from KubeCon Europe, talked to a lot of cloud native packages like Kubeflow, which has a lot of dependencies, and also like Litmus. And we really want to understand what package maintainers' current troubles are, how we can support them, and just love to talk to Kubernetes users in general to also see what features they need to really like improve their package management and usage of Kubernetes, because we love Kubernetes, but people seem to still struggle with it, especially with the packages in the cloud native sandwich. And yeah, we want to make it easier. We're currently, I think, at around 640 stars, Apache 2 licensed, and yeah, have around 24 maintainers, but no other big corporate as a maintainer. We still see already some usage in different big organizations, but yeah, happy to answer your questions now.
Marina, you just go.
I'm struggling with the mute button. Okay, you mentioned 24 maintainers. Are those maintainers or those contributors?
Good point. Contributors. And we have five maintainers.
5 maintainers. Are they all from the same org? Okay. And this you're looking to submit as sandboxed, right?
No.
What do
We're
you-
just here as Josh invited us, and we want to present Glasskube.
Wonderful. Okay.
I think it's too early now, too early right now to make some kind of decision.
Nice. Sorry, Alois, it looked like you were gonna jump in.
Yeah. So I think the question would be, as people already have like a lot of those packages out there, like how hard is it for somebody who might be using Helm right now to switch over to using Glasskube? Do I have to start from scratch? Is there a can I reuse it? Do you need to transfer stuff over? How would that work?
It's a good question. I think in the end we just, I mean, if you currently use Helm, you end up with having manifests deployed in your cluster, or resources deployed in your cluster. And if Glasskube outputs the same resources, there should not be any change. But it depends on your exact Helm configuration. If you can like mirror the same thing with Glasskube, it will be easy. You can just get rid of the Helm secrets where the releases are stored. So yes, I see a migration possible. I also see we also thought about doing stuff automatically, because we have a controller component in the cluster. We can look for some resources and can provide migration paths for easy packages like Cert Manager, which is kind of trivial. More complicated packages will either need input from a contributor or from a package maintainer side, or us really diving deep into it. But from a technical perspective, it's possible, just needs user documentation and clear paths.
Yeah. Maybe it's also some other feedback what we have actually been seeing, like looking at the clusters we run, where I think a package manager might come in handy. Already showed a couple of tools, but we see right now people almost using 50% auxiliary workloads on Kubernetes clusters.
Okay.
There's also like we have, and that we can also chat on Slack then, or even meet in person. So greetings from Vienna to Vienna.
Oh, nice.
Have done like a Kubernetes in the wild report, and we see people running, many have Cert Manager and others in there, but Argo and more non-application workloads, where I think this can come in super handy. So we could like I think there's also some stats out there what people usually install on their clusters, which you might already be looking into, like thinking of what to do. Just more as an FYI, there has already been research done what a lot of people are running in their clusters usually as like the basic setup that they're using.
Yeah, thanks. I saw the PDF. I maybe did not find everything you mentioned. Maybe there's also a longer version of it, but happy to meet in person. Anytime. I think I'll create a follow-up on Slack or LinkedIn and we'll get in touch.
But I think it's just also good to catch like what are people usually installing on their cluster. I think that we together with the CNCF are looking at revising this, because I think that's where I see like most of the value right now. I think for apps, yes, as well, but people think managing a lot of the manifests. But as the amount of auxiliary workloads is going up, I see a lot of value there.
Yeah, we are also focusing on third party. Like I'm not sure what the word auxiliary means in this context, to be honest. Maybe it's my.
It's non-application workloads running in a cluster.
Perfect. Yeah, this is exactly what we're focusing on. We're not focusing on your core application at all, because there are like tools for it, but the same like cert manager and captain, which is installed across multiple clusters. We want to focus on this kind of stuff, which has like still dependencies on other tools like captain, cert manager, and so on. Kubeflow on other stuff, or as you saw before with Tecton and with Shipwright.
All right, I think we have reached the end of today's meeting. Perfectly in time.
Yeah, we did pretty well. So, is the person from Litmus? No, they're not here anymore. Okay, cool. So we will do Litmus in maybe May 1st, if we can, if we're having a meeting there. So next time we'll do Tecton and Iterate. Cool. Okay. Thanks all for joining. That was a bit chaotic in the beginning, but we got there in the end. We will discuss the new format on project presentations and see if we want to already start with that in 2 weeks, but we'll let you know on the Slack channel. Yeah, that's it. Thanks all. Hope to see you again for the next meeting or on Slack. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.